Hello, what's shaking, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Orange Bloods Texas Football Channel. I'm Jeff Ketchum. That is Anwar Richardson. And this video is brought to you by Prize Picks. Use your 100% deposit match by using the promo code OrangeBloods. If you haven't used Prize Picks, I would suggest that the national championship game tonight is a perfect time to dabble a little bit in what it is that Prize Picks does. But as far as daily fantasy goes, there's no place quite like it. We've been using it throughout the football season. We're addicted. We have fun. I can't wait to get some action going tonight. I can't wait to talk a little bit about what our favorite picks for the game might be a little bit later in this video. Do us a solid. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, do all of that stuff. Notifications by ringing the bell. Tell your family. Put it on social media. You name it. Mr. Richardson, a certain quarterback that Texas fans might care a little bit about. He's officially on campus.
Yeah, Arch, which was kind of cool thing. I kind of found out I think on Thursday, and of course, like anything, I was like, I'll just save it for the war room, and then of course, the Texas media puts it out that he's on campus. I was like, well, that was a waste. But yeah, Arch actually arrived, before the weekend. He actually arrived early. I was told that he just wanted to kind of get there, kind of get checked in, kind of get the lay of the land, kind of learn the campus a little bit, figure out where his classes were. They didn't want to just get in on the weekend and do that, but really, so he got in midweek, this past week, and wanted to get himself acclimated to UT. And I think, when you're looking for small things, the biggest thing for me and the biggest takeaway from that is Arch Manning clearly has an attention to detail that goes beyond the average. Because, most people just show up. When they're just showing up Saturday and maybe going out on 5th Street or Sunday, and that'd have been it. Very few people say, I want to get there midweek. I want to get ahead of everyone, because by the time Texas media put it out there, he actually had been on campus for a couple of days. So, he wanted to get ahead of everything. I think it says a lot about, not only, Arch, but his eagerness to get here, eagerness to be a part of UT, an eagerness to kind of get his whole college experience started. It's funny because here was a guy like, last summer who was kind of on the fence if he wanted to go and enroll early or just finish playing basketball, and he ends up being the first guy that's on campus.
Yeah, it already has me thinking, Anwar, about the rest of this semester and spring football and all of that stuff. I guess I had a question for you. How long do you think it takes before the Arch buzz begins? So at what point do you think we'll hear the first Arch looks amazing in workouts? He's doing his due diligence. He's digesting that offense faster than any person has ever digested it before. Boy, you should see Arch.
Day one. The first day that he shows up and he's out there, it's so fascinating when you look at it, because the Arch is in the position that Quinn was in just around this time last year. Like just around this time last year, it was like Quinn is going to be here and Quinn's going to be on campus, and look at Quinn, and Quinn's out there looking great, and so on and so forth. And now the new buzz is what Arch is about. And so, I don't think it's going to take long. I think everything that Arch does is going to be a plus. It's going to be a bonus. Anything that he does wrong is going to be shaked off as a kind of a learning experience. But I think day one, we're going to hear nothing but good Arch buzz. We're going to hear how in shape he is. He's probably in better shape than any other quarterback that's ever shown up. Like, there'll be a huge Arch buzz. I think the entire offseason. I don't think there'll be enough Arch Quinn conversation that'll happen between now and that spring game. What about you?
I tend to agree with you. I also am sitting here wondering, are there any other midterm guys that fall into that category? I mean, Anthony Hill, I suppose, will be a guy, but I continue to maintain that there's an Arch universe that now exists for the University of Texas that most fans unless their memories go back 20 years and they really remember what it was like when Chris Sims stepped on campus, I don't think they truly understand what it means to now actually be living in an Arch Manning universe. Day one, maybe day 0.5, something like that. I mean, I think this is going to be the beginning, that the picture of him moving in that the school posted on its socials is officially the beginning of a brave new world that we live in. And it will dictate how we talk about the quarterback battle. And, I think subliminally, people will hear positive things about Arch. It'll be, how come I'm not hearing things about Quinn? And all of these things will be intertwined in ways that it will be hard for people to be self-aware of. Like, hey, just because something says something, we shouldn't automatically mean that it means this other thing. It's not how people's brains work. They just take it and run. I'm just fascinated to see throughout the offseason what Arch Mania looks like. Arch wasn't the only freshman. I guess I'd put it like this. There was only one freshman on the socials for Texas football over the weekend that anybody really cared about, right? So there were other pictures, but there was only one that went viral. And I think that it just speaks to what we're working with right now. And look, it has begun. At the end of the day, I guess the gist of what we're even talking about is let it begin, because it has begun. And now we'll wait and see over the course of the next, few weeks, just how jazzed up it is, just how loud the rhetoric machine is with regards to wanting to discuss how he's doing. It'll be the first thing we're asked. I mean, they're not together doing workouts yet, but that very first week on War, that all the guys are back on campus and they pick back up again with off-season workouts, 2 days won't have passed. It'll be like, where are the Arch updates? And it's like, oh, he did some bench press today. Today was legs. They did some squats. I mean, there will be days when there's just nothing to be said, but people are not going to want to hear that.
Yeah, I think so. The thing that I think Arch has an advantage of over just about everybody else is everything he does is going to be a plus. Like, because Arch is not really technically in a quarterback battle at this moment. Your quarterback battle would be Quinn and Malik, with Arch kind of getting the ride shotgun. And so because of that, and look, I'm sure there's people who support Arch who believe that he'll have a chance, an opportunity to compete. Not going to, for you guys, hey, hold the faith. But, I think everything that now, I think we'll only hear positives as relates to him. Every touchdown that he throws, like every time that he completes a pass, every long pass, like, because he's not in the battle. When you're in the battle, you also include the negatives. Like, you include the negatives of somebody that they do, so you get to the scrimmage and your scrimmages are, this guy threw 3 touchdowns but had 2 interceptions. This guy fumbled this and that. Every time Arch comes in, it's going to be like, he looked great. He looked great. All it is just, it looks great. He has the benefit right now of being able to do no wrong. And I think that will only add to the hype of him, because all you hear is, this guy's never thrown an incomplete pass at one time. All he throws is touchdowns, because no one's going to care about anything else that he makes a mistake as a young quarterback.
It's funny. The national championship game is tonight. This is me segueing over to our Prize Picks conversation about who we like in tonight's games in terms of getting some action going. But I couldn't help but think a little bit about Max Duggan and the offseason that he would have had last year, where Chandler Morris was the new guy. And if there's a world out there where there was like a big TCU message board and there was lots of interest in offseason, it probably would have sounded a lot like this, that there was nothing that Max Duggan could have done that would have interested people as much as Chandler Morris, the new guy at quarterback that was taking over for TCU. And yet here we are in the national championship game, and the guy that everybody would have wanted to get rid of last year at this point in the offseason for TCU, he's playing for a national championship game and is probably the key to this game, Anwar. What do you expect tonight? Is there a dominant storyline for you that plays into the picks that we're about to make over on Prize Picks?
Yeah, I've been trying to wrap my head around it because it's one of these the TCU that I think I know versus what the TCU that here, I, the TCU that I think I know or think I knew wasn't really great defensively this season, and now, but then they had the game against Texas, which kind of seems like the anomaly to their season because everything else has kind of been a TCU that's given up points. So when I start looking at the prize pick stuff, I just start looking at Georgia and I just start wondering, do it's a game that I expect Georgia. I don't expect a low scoring game, and I know Georgia will have to score points, but I don't think this will be 17-10 at all. Like I don't expect a repeat of that. So then to me, I think I start looking at, well, what's realistic, right? Is Stetson Bennett going to, it's at 278.5. Is he going to throw for 300 yards in this game? Catch like that's
a big number.
It's a huge number, right? That's a huge number in a national championship game. I mean, we're talking about if he does something like that's that cover of Sports Illustrated kind of performance. If he throws 300, because he throws 300, that means a couple of touchdowns. But then they have Max catch at 235.5. And that's
the Heisman runner-up is like 40 yards less than the former walk-on guy. It is a bit. I'm kind of all over the more on Max Duggan's passing yards because I think look, if this game gets played 10 times, Georgia probably wins 4 of these going away, at which point Duggan's having to throw the ball because they're having to play catch up. Now, never mind the fact that TCU comes in with – some people believe that TCU has the best receiving core in the country. I don't know that I quite believe that, but there's certainly in the conversation. There's all that speed. As good as Georgia's defense is, I think there will be speed at the wide receiver position that they haven't played against before so far this season. I think if I had to pick one right now, and I should say this, every time I bet on Max Duggan on Prize Picks so far this season, I feel like I've lost. If when I think he's finally going to get shut down, he explodes. When I think he's going to explode, he comes 10 yards shy of what he needs to get to hit the number. 235 passing yards. I'm taking the more on that one. I don't quite yet know what I'm combining it with, but that feels like the line that doesn't make the most sense for me because they could have put that at 278, and I think I would still be thinking about the game in the same way that it's 235. Again, I'm going to probably get this wrong, but it makes me think that the more is more likely than not, simply because there are 2 types of games that can be played, and both of which Max Duggan throws for a lot of yards. 1, cover of SI game, right? 2, getting your butt kicked in the 3rd and 4th quarter. You're throwing it on almost every play, and you might have 130 at halftime or 100 at halftime. That's the other thing. That number suggests 117 yards passing per half. I kind of feel like that's real. That's not asking Max Duggan to do something crazy. So I think of all the lines I like on this, the entries that I like, Duggan and the more on the passing yards is the most.
I think what I like about Duggan and passing yards is that Kendre Miller, the TCU running back, is going to be a game time decision. And if he doesn't play, that Duggan's all they realistically have at that point as far as generating offense. Like they will have to throw.
It's a great point.
Because Kendre Miller is injured, and because he probably may or may not play, that's why I like the Duggan pick for you as well. That then you would then probably try to double up with Quentin Johnson. I think he's at 88.5 catch. He probably could hit that, but I like the fantasy points a little bit more. He's at 15.5 fantasy points. So I think now I just need a touchdown and and a couple of yards after that. And I think I like the fantasy play for Quentin a little bit more. I also a sneaky thing that I've been doing, and it's been working successful, is I've gone to field goals. I've gone to field goals made. As much as I
It's
don't like
boring,
kickers
but they win.
because you got it at 1.5 for each field goal kicker. Each kicker is at 1.5. So essentially, you're just saying, can Georgia's kicker will they not convert on third down and kick probably 2 field goals? I think the answer to that's probably pretty easily yes. And then Griffin Hall, is Kel rather. That's the other one catch that 1.5 field goals made. I think I'm okay with saying that TCU will probably kick 2 field goals, especially if you think TCU might get their butt kicked. Then I think you could say to yourself, they might move the ball. Georgia clamps down on defense. So I like Duggan, but I like Duggan. I like the fantasy points for Quentin Johnson, and I like both kickers at 1.5.
Let me tell you another one that I kind of like, and then one that I think I like. I might even love Brock Bowers, the Georgia tight end, going more than 60.5. He's their number one receiver. You're right about that TCU defense. On paper, they should be giving it up some, other than the game against Texas where we thought we were going to get a high-flying game, and that didn't materialize. I'm kind of fascinated by the fact that there's a name of a Georgia receiver, Adonai Mitchell, who's been mentioned as a possible Texas transfer. I mean, there's a lot of talk that when this game is over, Adonai Mitchell is going to put his name in the portal and that Texas might be a school that he would have an interest in. I've looked at a lot of Georgia games lately. I don't remember Mitchell being listed on Prize Picks, and yet here he is for the national championship game. I would tell Texas fans, Adonai Mitchell, 42.5 receiving yards. I'm going to take the less. I'm taking the less on that based on he hasn't had very many games this year where I think he did most recently in the semifinal game where he scored a touchdown against Ohio State, but he generally hasn't had big games this season. Maybe there's a squeaky wheel element to this, but I'm going to take the less on that. And then how about this? Jared Wiley, former Longhorn, 15.5 receiving yards. I might go the more on Jared Wiley. I also look at Darius Davis at 27.5. You mentioned it. The running game for TCU might be limited or maybe even extinguished if there's no Miller at running back. So if I think that I'm going to use the Alex method of kind of choosing here, but if you think that Duggan's going to either have to throw for a lot of yards or will throw for a lot of yards, it's not the Quentin Johnston 85.5 that I want my action on because that's a pretty high number for the wide receivers. But Darius Davis at 27.5, Jared Wiley at 15.5, maybe even Savion Williams at 19.5. He would be my third guy. But yeah, I think I'm going to go more on some of the TCU receivers. I'm going to go less on Adonai Mitchell, and then I'm going more on Bowers and Duggan. And you said it, the fantasy score actually may be something. If you want to get action on Quentin Johnston, I think the fantasy score is just something to look at. Darius Davis's fantasy score is 6.5. Adonai Mitchell's is 8.5. Like that might be where the sneaky play is versus the yardage or receptions.
Yeah, I'm like I said, I'm all about the fantasy thing because this is a game on paper that Georgia should do pretty well in, but in TCU you're not expecting to. But I think the fantasy score kind of covers you a little bit because you can get a touchdown. I think it's just a little bit of an easier play than going, expecting Quentin Johnson to get 100 yards. I don't know. I'm like, but could he get 60 and a touchdown or something like that, and add in the receptions? Like, yeah, and then I think you're home free at that point. So I like the fantasies stuff a lot. The only thing last thing I'll say is the one thing I had to do some more research on. tackles. Do do we think like Georgia's got like guys like Keely Ringo catch at 3.5 tackles. They've got one of their linebackers at 6.5 tackles. If we're expecting Georgia to kind of hold it to, stick it to them on defense, we've got to start thinking about the tackles portion of it as well.
I generally do not get into the tackles, but D. Winters for TCU, their linebacker, with only 5 tackles and assists, that feels low. I feel like that guy's going to be closer to 10 than and it came to fruition in the semifinal game against Michigan. He had to have had 5 tackles or assisted tackles in the first quarter. He was all over the field. So, yeah, I think now that you mention it, I don't know about that I would go touch Keely Ringo because he's a DB and DBs can be hard to figure out sometimes. I kind of love D. Winters' 5 tackles and assists. And I haven't done tackles on Prize Picks yet, so I might do that tonight because it might be fun to watch TCU on defense and to just scream at D. Winters to get to the football. Come on, D! And then I'll want him to pile hop, like whatever it takes to get some assisted tackles to go with the solo tackles. I kind of like D. Winters in 5.
Yeah, I think that's a good play as well. It should be a fun game.
Yeah, and by all means, use Prize Picks. And as you can tell, I'm definitely doing some Prize Picks tonight. It will make the game better. Go to prizepicks.com. A 100% initial deposit match up to $100. But, damn it, use that promo code OrangeBloods. Don't just go there, sign up, start putting in your entries, and then miss out on the deposit match. And the way that you get that is use the promo code OrangeBloods. And oh, by the way, then they know that you guys came from us. That's important for us. We want them to know that we're sending people to them. For myself and Anwar Richardson, do us a solid, like this video, subscribe to the channel, do all of those things. We will see you a little bit later on today. More content on the Orange Bloods Texas Football channel. It never stops. But until then, you guys take care. Later.